Hi, this is Dan. Today we will look at how American culture affects your flight lessons with your instructor. So, there's a big chance if you're coming to the study in the United States that you will have an instructor who's never taught a foreign student or who has probably never met a foreigner before. So, when your instructor will teach you, they will assume that you're familiar with American culture and that you are very much like an American to an extent. Some things, of course, they know you will not understand because you are a foreigner, but there are some things that they will expect you, or as they would expect anyone, to know and do. So we will go into that now. Probably one of the biggest things, it is the handshake. In your culture, chances are that you don't introduce someone and shake their hand. Or maybe you do, but in the United States, when you shake someone's hand, there is a lot of your first impression that comes with that handshake. If you have a good handshake, then the instructor will assume that you're a good person, that you're strong, and that you're confident. If you have a weak handshake, they will assume that maybe there is something a bit socially awkward about you, some socially strange about you. This is all in the mind. This is not something that we think about. So when you shake your instructor's hand, you have to make sure you look your instructor in the eyes, smile, and have a strong handshake. Not so strong that you're going to crush his or her hand, but a strong handshake that shows that, yes, we are shaking hands. That's very important because that is part of how you present yourself to your instructor. And if you present yourself in a good way, then your instructor will more likely decide that you can be a good pilot and that you are worth working with. So the handshake is something that's very important and that you must understand. The next thing you have to understand is your instructor, they will probably ask you where you're from, but they will probably not know anything about where you're from. And more importantly, they probably won't really care. They might be interested, but they won't really care. So if your instructor doesn't know much about your country, don't take it personally. That's just how your instructor is. The next thing you have to understand that will affect your training is that American instructors assume that you will study by yourself, that you are autonomous, that you are independent. So maybe you come from a culture or a country where your education has been your teacher telling you what to do. That is not the case for flight instructors. Your flight instructor will show you what to study, but will expect you to be independent enough and proactive enough to get the books, to read the books, and to study them. So for example, your instructor, if you're starting your first lesson, they might tell you for homework, you have to read part 61 of the FAR Aim. Now, they don't mean just look at it, they mean read it. You will be responsible for learning everything in part 61. Sure, they will teach you some things, but you will be ultimately responsible to study that by yourself. And on that note, if you have questions and you ask your instructor, that's a good thing. You might come from a culture where, as a student, if you don't want to ask your instructor questions because it might make your instructor think that you're not very smart. That's not the case for American flight instructors. You ask questions that shows your instructors that you're studying, that shows your instructors that you're trying to understand. So ask questions to your instructor, and who knows, you and your instructor might find the answer together. Or your instructor, most probably, because autonomy, independence, self-study, will ask you back, tell me where to find it. But I'm asking you. No, but you tell me where to find it. That will be how you will probably end up knowing the answer. I'm just preparing you ahead of time for that. Another thing you want to work on or make sure is good is the student-instructor relationship. So you might come from a culture where if someone's an instructor and someone is a student, there's a strong gradient where the instructor is up here and you are down here. Not a bad thing, right? But it's just the cultural understanding. Not so much in America. Americans very much so put themselves kind of at an equal level. So even if you're even if you're the owner of the flight school and a student, they will treat you as if you're here. It's really interesting. So your instructor will try to be friendly. They might invite you to things. They might ask you. They might ask if you want to come. They're having a get together with other students and other instructors. Do you want to come? It's very important that you say yes. You might feel embarrassed or awkward with going on a more social event with your instructor or a social thing with your instructor. That is fine. And in fact, you're expected to. If you say no, it will hurt your relationship with your instructor and it will affect your flight training. The next thing that you have to expect from an American flight instructor is that your instructor will assume that you understand the parts of a car. Let me elaborate. Let me explain. When you're learning about an airplane, about the systems of the airplane, you'll come across words, you'll see words like carburetor, crankshaft, and you'll have to study things or understand things like tire pressure, oil change. And the thing is that Americans, and your American flight instructor has had a car of their own. And in that car, they've already learned what an oil filter is, oil change, how to put gas in a car, all these things, like what a carburetor is. For me, I didn't know what a crankshaft was, and my instructor kind of laughed. But it was because for American instructors, they already understand this. This is more concrete for them, more real for them, because they've done it with a car. Chances are, if you grew up as I did, not in America, you didn't have a car. You didn't need a car to travel around, to go anywhere. So you're not familiar with parts of a car. So when you start learning about an airplane, you're not familiar about parts on a plane. What is for example, why would you sump fuel? I mean, you understand it, but why would you do it? Or for example, oil filter. Let's say let's say you're about to go fly, and the oil quantity is a bit low, or even the oil texture. You're supposed to look at the color of the oil, right? How dark it is. But if you've never had any experience with oil and oil changes or anything like that, you might not understand that. So make sure you explain that to your instructor as you learn airplane systems, that you've never had a car, that you've never been able to understand these, really in your own life. So that's something that might affect your learning experience and systems with your instructor. And the next thing is your English. So your flight instructor will speak to you as if you were an American. Now, they might slow down their speaking. They might use more simple words because English is not your first language. But when they're excited or when they're not thinking about it, they will speak to you like an American, and they will use American idioms that you might not be familiar with. For example, let's say you're in a lesson and you're landing a plane, and after the landing, your instructor says, "You nailed it." You nailed it. You mean you put a nail through it? What does that mean exactly? And it might affect what you think that means, and your instructor might not know that you don't know what it means. Or, for example, if your instructor says, "Did you hit the books?" Let's say before class your instructor says, "Did you hit the books?" Did I hit the books? No, I didn't hit the books. I just, right? You don't hit books. You understand what I mean. Your instructor will not mean to use idioms or words that you don't understand, and will not know enough to know that you're embarrassed to ask what those mean, because you don't want to look like you don't know what those mean. That being said, if you want help with American idioms, if you want help with the English part of flight instruction, of becoming a pilot, go to my website. Or if you have specific questions, put them below in the comment section and I will answer them and help you out. And that's also important for your flying. American aviation, many airports do not use ICAO phraseology. phraseology. We see this when we fly in big airports with big planes. You have pilots not understanding exactly what the American controllers want. And I'll give you some examples, or that even me, it took me a while to understand. One is, for example, if air traffic control says to you, you're coming in to go land at the airport, and air traffic control says, aircraft 123, go for the numbers, clear to land. Go for the numbers. What? Okay, go for the numbers. Yes, I will aim for the numbers. That's not what the air traffic controller means. The air traffic controller means they want you to go straight to the runway. Don't do a whole pattern. Go straight to the runway, because probably there is someone behind you who is a lot faster, and he wants to make you land first before the other plane. So another example is if they say aircraft 254 dogleg to final. Dogleg, and you'll probably look in the books, where is that word dogleg? But you can expect to find yourself in that situation, and when that happens, it's okay to ask. It's okay to say, I don't understand that, I'm not familiar with that. There's another video where I talk about what to do for communication challenges. Again, if you do need extra help with this, feel free to contact me. Go to my website, and if you have any specific questions, please, again, post them below and I will get back to you. Anyway, that's all I have for this. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video. Talk to you later.